Emily Ann's apartment. Group shot of a wedding ceremony looking across the minister's back. We see Emily Ann, silent and solemn, wearing a white bridal costume and veil. Young Tower, his face implacably expressionless. Around them are the mother, the aunt, the uncle in a blue woolen serge suit. Two girls of Emily Ann's age dressed up in cheap organdy frocks. And a GI, apparently the best man. There is a homemade wedding cake on the kitchen table which has been brought into the living room. There is also a punch bowl. The most striking aspect of this ceremony is the cheerlessness of it, the stern Baptist faces. Young Tower in particular seems troubled. The minister intones the service. Outside Emily Ann's apartment, night. Long shot looking up to the second floor landing. In the foreground, the wedding party of the best man, the two bridesmaids, the mother, the aunt, the uncle, either standing on the sidewalk looking up or getting into the various automobiles parked there. Three ghetto kids are fascinated spectators. On the balcony stands Emily Ann, a gay white figure. She is waving goodbye and shouting to the departing guests. Emily Ann shouting, "I want to thank you all very much. I want to thank you all very much. Sarah Ann, I'll call you Monday morning." The uncle calling back, "Don't go to sleep too late." This Rabelaisian advice brings a guffaw from the aunt and a giggle from one of the bridesmaids. Emily Ann calling, "I'm so excited. I'm so excited I just can't tell you." Reverse shot from Emily Ann to the people down on the sidewalk. Emily Ann, "I want to thank you all for the presents and all." Bridesmaid calling back, "Call me up tomorrow and let me know how you feel." Laughter from some of the wedding party and giggles from the neighborhood children. The GI who has climbed into one of the cars hollers. The best man, "Can I give anybody a lift?" The mother, "Goodbye, honey." Emily Ann, "Goodbye, Ma. Goodbye. See you Monday." The mother gets into the uncle's car, the last to get in. The door closes behind her. The cars start off. Emily Ann watches them disappear, then stands a moment pensive, a little troubled. Then turns, opens the screen door, and goes into the apartment. Emily Ann's living room. Emily Ann comes back in. Tower is at the punch bowl pouring himself a glass. He is dressed neatly in his olive drabs, sober but distant, detached, isolated, inside himself. She regards him a little closely. Emily Ann, "I want to thank you very much for going through with the ceremony, the formalities, the minister, and all that. I know how you despise little formalities like that, but they are deeply important to me. And I appreciate." She breaks off. Tower merely nods, sips his punch, looks vaguely around the shabby little room, all the more shabby for the half-eaten wedding cake, the plates with portions of cake left on them, the glasses and tumblers here and there. He goes to the porch, stands. There is a feeling of hostility in him. Emily Ann, "I expect I better clean up a little bit now." She gathers a few plates and starts for the kitchen. Before she reaches the doorway, she pauses and looks at her husband. He is examining his glass of punch. She is anxiously aware of his coldness. Emily Ann, "Are you all right? Do you feel all right?" Tower, "I feel fine." Emily Ann, "What are you thinking about?" Tower, "Nothing." Emily Ann, give me a chance, Johnny. Tower, whirling to face her, his eyes blazing. I said I feel fine. Go clean up the dishes or whatever you're doing. He turns angrily back to looking out through the screen door, and the room is suddenly still, thick with the hush of restrained hatred. After a moment, Emily Ann moves a few steps into the room, afraid to look at him. Emily Ann, don't turn your back on me. Give me a chance. Tower, just leave me alone right now, Emily. That would be the best thing for you to do. She doesn't move. She stands in the middle of the room, afraid to let go of the fumbling moment of contact she has made. Tower, leave me alone right now. Let me find my own way. I'll try to make this work out. Just leave me alone right now. Across the sad little half-eaten wedding cake, past Emily Ann standing in the middle of the room, her eyes closed, her shoulders slumped, her stomach taut, her heart cold. To Tower standing rigidly at the porch screen door, staring stonily out into the night. And so they were married. Hold this tableau for a moment. Street outside Emily Ann's house day. 4 rowdy little kids dressed in winter clothes, interrupted in their play, look down the street. Kids POV, looking down the shabby, unsidewalked street with its uneven row of old frame houses, some of them unpainted. It is not quite dusk. The sun is low in the west, and there is a heavy golden sheen in the air. What the little kids are fascinated by is Tower suddenly drunk, lurching down the street toward the house he now lives in. His army greatcoat is unbuttoned and flaps limply as he staggers along. He passes the kids. They eye him covertly. He turns into the house and starts climbing up the stairs with the painfully meticulous caution of the very drunk. Emily Ann's apartment. Day. Tower opens the door, then the screen door, then poising in the open doorway to make sure of his balance. Reverse shot of Emily Ann, 8 months pregnant, full and swollen, crossing to the kitchen. We see enough of Towers' face to see the sodden distaste he has for this bulging, waddling girl. He lumbers across the gray-shadowed living room to the kitchen doorway. Still across his shoulder we see Emily Ann and her mother at work in the kitchen preparing the evening meal. The mother, a frumpy woman of 40 in a torn house dress and flapping slippers. One stocking loose and hanging on one leg, singing softly her inevitable hymns, and the very pregnant girl, sallow and without makeup. The mother stands at the stove, absently watching a saucepan of boiling water. Emily Ann is at the cupboard, pouring her shelled peas into a saucepan. She places her hand on her swollen stomach as the baby kicks hard within her. Neither of them cares to acknowledge Towers' presence. Tower. Well, I finally got myself transferred to a combat outfit. I leave a week from Tuesday. I hope I get killed. Emily Ann looks at him, the cold hatred manifest in her eyes. Emily Ann. I hope so too. She turns to an opened package of chopped meat and begins rolling the meat into patties. Tower turns after a moment, crosses the room, and goes out the door. The 4 kids watch Tower lurching back into the street he had just come down. We watch him with the kids for a moment until he is quite down the block. A street. Night. Tower sits on the curb of this quiet, dark residential street, staring out with drunken blankness. It is drizzling, and his face is moist, his greatcoat soggy wet. He closes his eyes and then slowly allows his weary, besotted body to slide into a reclining position. His knees curl up, and he lies, a grotesque wet embryo of a man, half on the curb, half in the gutter, sleeping in the drizzle. Emily Ann's living room. Emily Ann lies on the floor of the living room reading movie magazines. They are all around her. Modern Screen, Photoplay, etc. She wears a skirt, sloppy Joe sweater, and saddle shoes and looks even younger than her 18 years. She is no longer pregnant. The apartment is quiet. There are a few slight changes. On the walls hang portrait upon portrait of movie stars of that day, carefully scissored from the magazines. Anne Sheridan, Cary Grant, Deanna Durbin, Anne Rutherford, Mickey Rooney, Jean Tierney, Paulette Goddard, John Payne, Betty Grable, Errol Flynn, Victor Mature, etc. A baby cries faintly off in another room. Emily Ann cocks her head, waits to hear if it will continue. The baby cries plaintively again, and Emily Ann gets to her feet with a small sign of exasperation. The baby now begins to cry fully. Emily Ann moves to the bedroom. The bedroom. Across and through the bars of a crib to the door of the bedroom as Emily Ann enters. There is a very small baby, hardly the size of your forearm, lying under a thin receiving blanket, only its face showing, crying lustily. Emily Ann moves to the crib, a soft smile edging her lips. She murmurs soothing endearments as she approaches. Emily Ann. All right, sweet baby. All right, sweetie baby. Don't you worry now. Mommy's going to kiss you. She picks up the crying baby, receiving blanket and all, and presses it to her. Her eyes close, and she hugs it in a flush of love for the child. Emily Ann. Sweet baby, sweet baby, sweet baby. The baby continues to cry. Emily Ann walks around with it. Emily Ann. What do you want, baby? What do you want? You just had your bottle. Baby, 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 baby. The shrill, thin screams begin to get on Emily's nerves. She is clearly distressed. Emily Ann, with no real vigor. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. She goes out the bedroom, across the living room into the kitchen. The baby's cry continues without pause. A disturbing, thin wail. Emily Ann. Come on, I'll give you the rest of the bottle. You want the rest of the bottle? There is a half-filled baby bottle on the cupboard shelf. She picks it up. The baby's cry is becoming nerve-wracking. Emily Ann, losing her patience. What's the matter? What's the matter? She feels the baby's rump under the blanket. Are you wet? What is it? The nerve-wracking little cry continues. Do you want the bottle? Here, do you want the bottle? The baby cries. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Crying out. What do you want? The angry voice only makes the baby cry louder. Emily Ann is on the verge of tears herself, screams out. Shut up, leave me alone, leave me alone. She goes out of the kitchen across the living room again and walks aimlessly around the living room. She is crying now in desperation. The baby is crying with almost unbearable shrillness. Emily Ann moves up and down the bare living room, holding the screaming baby, crying. Emily Ann, whimpering. Please, please, please. She clenches her eyes against the baby's screaming and rambles back to the bedroom. Emily Ann. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She puts the baby back into the crib where it lies squalling. It has now been crying in this piercing fashion for at least a minute. It is unbearable. Emily Ann sits down, stares aghast at the room, shaking her head nervously, crying. The kitchen. Emily Ann stands by the window on the far wall, staring out with hostile bleakness. The sun is strong, and there is an edge of frost on the window. Together, these effects combine almost to whiten Emily Ann's face like an overexposed snapshot. She turns at the sound of the door being opened. Emily Ann turns to the doorway through which her mother, bundled in a winter coat, is now entering. The mother, vaguely aware something is amiss, looks across to her daughter through steel-rimmed glasses. Emily Ann, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of this town. I want to leave the baby with you, Ma. It's too much for me. I can't stand it no more. The mother, what's the matter? Emily Ann crying out, I'm only 18 years old. I got a good figure. I turn lots of heads when I go down the street. I want to have some fun. The mother, what about the baby? Emily, shrilly, I don't want it. I don't want it. I didn't want it when it was born, and I don't want her now. Two-shot across the mother's face to Emily Ann by the window. The familiarity of Emily Ann's words bring an expression of deep pain to the mother's rock-ribbed face. The cycle is complete. Emily Ann stands by the window, her face bleached by the white glare of the snow outside and the fierce stream of sunlight, her chin quivering with a terrified desperation. Emily Ann, I want to be happy. Fade out. Fade in. Hollywood, Sunset Boulevard, Laurel Canyon. It is a bright, warm, hazy Hollywood day looking down Sunset Boulevard in the direction of Highland Avenue. For orientation purposes, if we were to turn around, we would see Schwab's drugstore and the parking lot where the old actor's lab used to be. Right now, we see a row of gasoline stations in the background, a dry cleaning store, a delicatessen, and some other stores. We also single out Rita Shawn, Hollywood starlet, nay Emily Ann Faulkner, walking toward us. She was 21 years old by now, a little too blonde. The black dress is too tight around the hips, the high heels are too high. She seems brassier, bolder, less vulnerable. She carries a large flat portfolio, the sort artists' models carry to show their pictures. Over this, the following legend. Part 2. Portrait of a young woman. Camera pans with Rita as she walks indolently toward us and then past us. Her dress buttons high on the neck and is demurely topped by a Peter Pan collar, but the hips undulate more than necessary and her breasts are straining against the material. The dress, frankly, was bought at Jack's on Wilshire, and it is a carefully selected size too small. Her blonde hair falls in determinedly casual waves over her shoulders, and her lips glisten and sparkle. We watch her undulate away from us toward the ham and eggery on the corner of Laurel Canyon Drive. By the time she turns into the ham and eggery, we all know that this is a Hollywood starlet. Over this, the following legend. Hollywood, California, 1947. The ham and eggery day. Rita enters the restaurant. This is one of those waffle joints that flourished briefly in Hollywood right after the war. The overhead ceiling fixture is in the shape of a huge skillet, and the eggs are served in a hot frying pan right off the fire. There are 5 rows of booths and a counter that runs up the length of one side. At the end of the counter, there is an alcove that leads into the sudden darkness of a bar. The bar, to this day, is called the Black Watch. It is lunchtime and the place is crowded. All the patrons are actors, writers, or in some way connected with the movies. They are dressed after the casual fashion of Hollywood. The men wear sports shirts and slacks. The women wear men's shirts and slacks. There are a few dirndls and a few sports jackets. There is a noticeable sprinkling of sweatshirts and jeans, indicating that members of the Actors' Lab, a very serious school of acting, also patronize the place. There is a great deal of talking going on. The talk is angry, bitter, hostile, and loud. Most of these people are regularly unemployed. Even the jokes are rancorous, the laughter harsh. Rita makes her way down an aisle toward a rear booth. In the foreground is a booth occupied by 3 young men and 2 young actresses. This is a contingent of the sweatshirt brigade, and the discussions at tables like this stem from 2 major issues: the commercial mediocrity of Hollywood, and the paranoid insistence that the whole society is preventing these chaps from getting their big break. The chap holding forth is a writer who writes one-act plays of studied social content, crackling with violent pungencies of dialogue. Actually, he talks a great deal more than he writes. He is talking now. The writer. Name one good picture made in the United States in the last 5 years. Go ahead. Name one. I made a good picture. Have we had one Open City, one Shoe Shine? We don't have a director in this country to compare to Rossellini, Basica. How can you compare American pictures to foreign pictures? An actor. How about Oxbow Incident? The writer. All right, one good picture. All right, name another. Another actor. Lost Weekend. The writer. All right, 2 good pictures. First actor. Grapes of Wrath. The writer. All right, 3 good pictures. He is losing interest in the argument. Rita approaches a rear-walled table at which sit 2 other starlets, one blonde and one brunette. The blonde's name is Hillary and the brunette's name is Joanna. They are both dressed in blouses and slacks. The blonde is a vapid type with an undistinguished features. The brunette is an enormously sad girl. She stares down at a shot of liquor with naked distaste for the liquor and all of life itself. She appears to have had a bad night the night before, a night of strange dreams. Some of the horror is still with her. Both girls are in their late 20s. They look up briefly as Rita approaches. There is an exchange of hellos. Rita. Where is everybody? Joanna, darkly into her drink. Dutch Seymour called you about 10 minutes after you left the house. Rita, amiably. I better call him. Hillary, offering a copy of a newspaper to Rita. You're in Ed Sullivan's column again today. Rita, sitting at the table. Yeah, I know. To Joanna. Was Dutch mad? Joanna, not looking up. My mother answered the phone. Hillary, pointing to the paper. Where it says boxing champ Dutch Seymour is talking wedding bells to starlet Rita Shawn, who used to be Emily Ann Faulkner of Beacon City, Maryland. What did he put all that in for? Rita, brightly. Oh, I called Joe Glass yesterday. I said, Joe, Dutch Seymour has been asking me to marry him. Is that worth an item somewhere? So I said, Joe, if you get it into some column, I said, ask them to put my real name down. Because my mother, I called her last week, she says nobody back in Beacon City believes all the clippings I sent back is really me. It always says starlet Rita Shawn. So I said, put down that my real name was Emily Ann Faulkner. My mama didn't even know who Dutch was. I said, Ma, Dutch Seymour is an all-time boxing great. He was a middleweight champ, retired undefeated, and beat Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum for the light heavyweight crown, fighting out his own weight class. So my mama said, Slapsy Maxie who, Precious? To Joanna, who stands now and starts off for the bar. How do you feel, Joanna, after last night? Joanna doesn't seem to have heard. She moves off into the blackness of the bar. Rita regards the empty glass on the table. Rita. Well, she's drinking before lunch now, I see. Hillary. Oh, she's had about 5 shots already. Rita has spotted somebody up front of the restaurant and is gaily waving at him. Rita. Broad smile, gay. Hiya, Alex. Turns to Hillary, the smile disappearing. She darts a quick look at the bar. You should have seen Joanna last night. She's been drinking something terrible. It's just breaking her mother's heart. I'm going to move out of there. There's just nothing but screaming going on in that house all the time. Who you rooming with now, Hillary? Hillary. I'm rooming with Sandra Steele. Rita. Oh, I thought she was rooming with Charlene. Hillary. They had a fight. Rita. Intense whisper. I came home last night. I was out with Martin Charles, who's doing an independent with all unknowns. There's a nice little part in that picture. 4 days' work at least. A Nazi girl who hides out the aviator on her father's farm when he's running away from the stormtroopers. Anyway, Martin Charles took me to my door. He's got big eyes for me. I think I'll get that part. Anyway, I came in the house. It was 2 a.m. Joanna was sitting in the living room with all the shades up, wearing just about nothing, talking to herself. She was so drunk she didn't know I was there. She made me think of my first husband. Did I tell you my final divorce papers came through? Hillary. Does Dutch Seymour really want to marry you? Rita. She suddenly beams and waves brightly to somebody off stage. I don't know what he sees in me. I only been in 7 pictures, and only 2 of those was speaking parts. I must say, however, that ever since that item appeared in Ed Sullivan's this morning, I got 4 calls. I'm back from Hal King at Metro. I'm going up to see Bert Harris at Paramount in about 40 minutes. His secretary called this morning. Hillary. Well, if you're going up to see Bert Harris, I wouldn't wear anything so high in the neck. Rita. I just thought I'd try something demure for a change. Hillary. I know a couple of girls been out with Dutch Seymour, and they say he's pretty dull. Rita. Oh, he's been out with about every girl in Hollywood. He's a lost soul. He really is. It's hard for a man to be a big athletic celebrity for so many years and then retire and be nothing. He don't know what to do with himself. He wanders around the country making speeches to Boy Scouts. He sits there in that hotel room of his, calling friends on the telephone all day long. He calls me twice a day. I thought about marrying him because it would be wonderful for my career. She stands. I better call Dutch. She suddenly spots another familiar face off stage and waves and beams. Watch my portfolio, will you, Hillary? She moves off into the bar. The bar of the Ham and Eggery. Rita comes into the bar, erect and undulating, the professional half-formed smile nailed on her face. The bar is dark, with only a few little hidden lights by the bar mirror. There are about 3 people in it, the bar having just opened. At the end of the bar by the telephone booth is Joanna, standing hunched over her drink. She watches Rita as she comes to the phone booth. Joanna. A girl who can drink for hours without showing it. Where are you going this afternoon? Rita, sliding into the phone booth and fishing change out of her purse. Well, I'm up for a part at Bert Harris's at Columbia at 2:30. Joanna. I'll drive over with you. Rita, inserting a dime and dialing. Fine if you want to, Joanna. She finishes dialing and waits. Joanna. There's a letter from your husband. Rita. Yes, I saw it. On phone. Room 417, please. Mr. Dutch Seymour. To Joanna. Usual letter, he's fine. My little daughter's fine. He's working in a publishing house now. He's getting married again. He's being psychoanalyzed. On phone. Hiya, Dutch? Dutch, this is Rita. Well, Dutch, I don't know who put that item in Ed Sullivan's. I didn't tell anybody. Not even Joanna and her mother. She makes a move at Joanna, rolls her eyes at the ceiling, sighs with impatience. Well, maybe you told somebody and it was overheard. You know how you can't say a word around this town without it getting in the papers. Street inside Columbia Studios. Rita and Joanna sit in a Ford convertible. The car is parked at the curb. The blank white stucco sound stages and studio buildings rise monolithically and blankly all around them. There is a desultory pedestrian traffic, a person here and there on the hot, sunny streets. The girls both sit silently disturbed, depressed. Rita, after a moment. You need any money? Joanna. No, my mother's alimony came in yesterday. I swiped $20. Rita. I got about $100 you can have if you want it. What's eating you, Joanna? You've been going on like this for ever so long. Joanna. Don't you ever get depressed? Rita. Sure. Joanna with growling surliness. When I first met you, you were about one step away from picking men off the street. You were going to throw yourself off the top of the May building. You don't remember that, do you? You just got fired and you didn't have any money and you kept talking about going up to the personnel manager's office and throwing yourself out of the window. That's how you're going to show him for firing you. Well, that's how I feel. I feel so tired I can hardly get out of bed in the morning. The only reason I get up at all is I just couldn't stand staying home with my mother. You better get upstairs. You're going to be late for Bert Hare's. Rita. I got 10 minutes. Joanna. Well, just don't tell me to stop drinking all the time. She stares desolately out at the glaring bright white stucco of the studio buildings. Rita sits uncomfortably. Joanna, abruptly. When I was 8 years old, I won the prettiest child at the Missouri State County Fair. And that's all my mother had to hear. She whisked me up to New York, and she had me taking ballet lessons at Carnegie Hall. Whole bunch of us little girls prancing around on our skinny legs. She had me modeling for John Robert Powers when I was 15 years old. I made $11,000 when I was 15 years old. Well, I've been out here 11 years now. And it's about time she realizes she ain't never going to be the mother of a big movie star. If you don't make it by the time you're 28, you never make it. I'm taking extra calls now, standing online, making eyes at some assistant director. I don't know how to get out of this. Don't you understand? I don't know where to go. I keep dreaming I'll meet some man who will marry me and take me away. Who? Eddie Rogers? I've been going with him for 4 months and I don't even like him. He's a vicious drunk. I never know what he's going to do. And after him, somebody just like him. I wish I could just go to sleep and sleep and sleep. Rita, you want to go to the beach this afternoon? I think Valerie and Marilyn went there. Joanna, it's 2:30 now. They sit in stiff silence again. Joanna darts a quick look at her young friend. Joanna, I really do believe you are concerned about me. Rita, I am, Joanna. Joanna, you'd really give me that $100, wouldn't you? Where would you get $100 anyway? Dutch Seymour give you money? Why don't you marry him? Don't you like him at all? Rita, sure I like him. I like him a lot. He's a kind man. I just don't want to get involved. That's all. Joanna. I'd marry him in a minute. Rita. Joanna, I never had it so good as right now. I got a lot of friends and I go to a lot of parties and I got nice clothes. My mother writes me I'm the hero of my hometown. Everybody is following my career like I was a football player from the high school who went on to Notre Dame. We had a boy like that. My, how we all talked about him. What do I want to get married for? I'm having a fine time just the way I am. Joanna, it's better than drinking yourself to sleep. Rita, well, the day I find myself with nothing else to do but drink myself to sleep, I'll get married. I never drank in my life. I can't stand the taste of it. I saw what my first husband was like, and I won't even sip cocktail at a party. Joanna, well, I hope you never have to start. Rita, I never will, don't you worry. Joanna, don't be mad at me, Rita. A sudden, swift compassion sweeps over Rita's angry little face. She leans toward her friend in a flush of warmth. Rita, sincerely. I ain't mad at you, Joanna. You're the only person I know I feel something for, and it makes me sick to see you as miserable as you are. Joanna, touched. You better get up to see Bert Hares. Rita, peering at her friend. Joanna, could you lend me $10? Something like that? Rita, promptly opening her purse. Sure. A portly, middle-aged man comes out of the building behind the car, preoccupied, starts walking down the street. His appearance transforms the dejected Joanna into a brightly smiling young woman, her mouth somewhat ajar in the now common conception of sensuality. Joanna, brightly. Hiya, Mr. Cummings. Rita looks up, her face automatically registering a vivid, flashing smile. Rita. Hiya, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings turns, nods, and continues on his way. Camera stays on the two young starlets, their faces a study in facile gaiety. Bert Harris's outer office. Rita and 4 other girls, all blonde, all cut from the same cloth, almost indistinguishable from each other, sit on the long brown leather office couch, or on the comfortable soft brown leather easy chair, or standing against the wall. All the girls are dressed fit to kill according to their own lights. For the most part, this consists of daring necklines and much too tight skirts. They all have large artists' models' portfolios or smaller books of pictures of themselves. They all sit with a determined jadedness, unmoving, their skirts arranged over their knees. A gray-haired secretary sits behind the desk, drinking coffee from a container and jabbering indistinct words to a friend over the telephone. There are some prints on the wall, Japanese silks and hunting scenes, and a framed poster of Mr. Harris's last picture. An effort entitled, Give Me My Blood. Next to the poster is a mounted bronze plaque, which is a box office award for the aforementioned picture distributed by one of the innumerable organizations that bestow box office awards. The door to the inner office opens and still another pretty blonde girl comes out, expressionless except for a thin little smile. She looks at one of her friends sitting on the couch and makes a small move to indicate something every one of these girls understands. The girl she made the face at, sitting 2 away from Rita, offers the girl who just came out a cigarette. The girl who just came out. It ain't worth it. The part's about that big. She indicates how big the part is by her thumb and forefinger held 1 inch apart. Rita stands, goes to the secretary's desk. Rita to the secretary. Rita, Sean. Secretary. All right, honey. She goes to the door to the inner office, raps lightly, opens it, sticks her head in. Bert Harris's interior office. Across Bert Harris's bulky back to the doorway where Rita stands. She peers in with a big smile. Rita, can I come in? Harris, come on in. Rita comes in, closes the door. Mr. Harris's office is precisely the same as his secretary's, except that there is an air conditioner that clogs up his window. The window has white nylon curtains through which the Hollywood sun filters. There is a picture of Mr. Harris's wife and two children, aged 16 and 9, on Mr. Harris's desk. Mr. Harris himself is a tall, well-groomed, balding man in his 50s, dressed in impeccable business costume, a gray striped suit. He looks up briefly at Rita's entrance, then goes back to pacing the room with executive ponderousness. He keeps his right hand in his jacket pocket and talks in measured basso tones. There are several scripts on the desk, variously colored, and a small vase containing innumerable finely sharpened pencils. Rita advances with her portfolio. Rita, I have my pictures with me if you'd like to see them, Mr. Harris. I had a very nice part in my last picture at Columbia. Michael Silman directed, The Wayward Angel. I play a sweet sort of Southern girl type, I think. Harris, I got a small part in my picture, a barmaid in a western town. I've had my eye on you for some time, Miss. He looks quickly at a sheet of paper on his desk. Miss Shawn, you'd be just right for it. You be nice to me and I'll see that you get billing. It'll be a good credit for you. Rita, the smile gone from her face, all business. How nice do I have to be? Harris, his face suddenly brightens into a smile. You're Dutch Seymour's girl. That's right. Sure, you'll get the part. We'll talk about it tonight. Rita Shawn, sure. Rita, smiling. Are you going to pick me up or do I have to meet you somewheres? Harris, why don't you meet me at the Ready Room, 7 o'clock. Rita nods, gathers up her portfolio and reaches for the doorknob. Hollywood, North Cherokee, night. Down the hill of North Cherokee, we see Hollywood at night, with a small 6-story apartment house in foreground. There are some lights on. Bert Harris's apartment living room night. Bert Harris moves slowly, restlessly around the room. He is wearing a dressing gown over his clothes. He is detached, perhaps even cold. He seems unpleasantly preoccupied. His right hand is stiffly placed in the pocket of his robe. 2 standing lamps illumine the room. Through the Venetian blinds, we can see that it is night outside. The room itself is furnished after the usual style of studio apartments. Several daybeds, soft chairs, an Eames chair, a portable bar with bottles of liquor and a variety of glasses, wallpaper showing small sporting scenes, a pipe rack running almost the length of the wall. Bert Harris moves slowly around the room, right hand in pocket, the perpetual executive pacing his conference. The door to another room opens and Rita comes out. She is wearing a party dress. She seems calm, detached, a cigarette dangling listlessly from her lips. Neither of them looks at the other. Harris, coldly. I called a cab for you. Wait downstairs for it. Rita, squeezing her feet into her pumps, all business. I told my agent I had the part. He'll call you in the morning, discuss terms. Harris, $100 a day, 2 days shooting. There's nothing to discuss. Rita, when's my shooting date? Picking up a script off a studio couch. Is this a script? I'll take it home and study the part. I'll tell my agent to call you in the morning. Rita picks her summer stole off the back of one of the chairs and her tiny beaded purse. Rita, smiling amiably. Well, thank you for a very pleasant evening. I enjoyed the dinner very much. Is this my cab money? She smiles pleasantly, scoops up a bill from off the coffee table. Goodbye now. Harris says nothing, is facing the room. Rita fits her stole over her shoulders and disappears into the shadows of the front corridor. North Cherokee Street outside the apartment. Looking down the hill of North Cherokee with Rita standing, her arms folded across her chest, pulling the stole tight across her shoulders. Looking past her, we can see all the way to Sunset Boulevard. It is 11 o'clock at night, and the endless, swishing parade of automobile lights moves back and forth on the boulevards. Some of the storefronts in the distance are still lighted, and neons blink in the dark night. A taxi cab has rounded the corner at the bottom of the hill. It pulls quickly up to where she stands in front of the small white apartment house. Rita gets into the cab. She sits down and then just sits for a moment. The driver finally turns around. Driver, where to? Rita, I don't know. She stares listlessly at the floor of the cab. The ham and eggery night. Wide group shot of a booth containing 3 young actors and 2 girls. One of the girls is Rita. She seems quite tired. She rests her face on her right hand and rubs the corners of her eyes. In the background, we see that the restaurant is jumping, filled with people, loud voices, loud laughs. One of the 3 men in the booth is the writer of the previous ham and eggery scene. Some of this restaurant's patrons never leave the joint, smoking, drinking coffee, and talking all day long, right up to closing time at 1 a.m. The writer is one of these fellows. He is in full blast of discussion as we cut in. The writer. Acting. You call that acting? A smile. That's joy? A frown. That's tragedy? The other girl in the booth, an intense little brunette with a mop of hair and disdainfully dressed in a sweatshirt and dungarees, leans toward Rita. The girl. You want a Dexedrine Spancel? Rita. Yeah, you got one? The girl fishes a little tin out of her pocket and gives Rita a Spancel, which she gulps down with her coffee. She sits slumped in her seat, her face resting heavily on the palm of her hand. Camera begins to dolly slowly back and away from the booth. The writer's words begin to fade into the overall jumble of the restaurant just as this particular booth begins to get lost among all other booths. The writer. All right, wise guy. Name me one good picture made in the United States in the last 5 years. Name me one picture to compare with Open City or Shoeshine. Name me one picture that's got guts. Right now, I'm writing a play that exposes this stinking industry for what it is. Actor. When do you write, George? You're here gassing away all day and night. Long shot. Looking down on the restaurant only half filled with tired and driven people. In particular, we see Rita hunched in her seat, exhausted and spent, her face too weary to feign any cheerfulness. The ham and eggery bar night. Rita is in the dark bar, which is jammed. Actors, actresses, old, young, middle-aged, assistant directors, writers, grips, gaffers, and prop men block the aisle and make it almost impassable. Rita has joined a huddled group at the end of the bar. There are 2 starlets sitting on stools sipping drinks, surrounded by 4 men. Rita is beaming, hyper-ebullient, hysterically gay. She wraps her arms around 2 of the men in a burst of effusive camaraderie. Somebody offers her a drink. She says, "No thanks, I don't drink." Her face is radiant, almost hysterically so. The 2 starlets on the stools say something. Rita bends down to hear it, then throws her head back and laughs and laughs and laughs. North Sierra Bonita night. High-angle shot looking down on the dark, deserted, silent little street of pretty little one-family houses. For a long moment, the absolute stillness hangs so that we know it is very late at night. Not a light in any window. All is quiet. Then a taxi edges slowly into our view, moving along at the curb looking for a particular house. The taxi stops. The door opens and Rita gets out of the cab, closes the door behind her. The click of the door is clearly audible in the night hush. The cab pulls away with a murmur of gears and motor. Rita hurries up the little white walk to the front door of the house, fishing out her key from her purse. She inserts the key and opens the door. We can perhaps detect through the white chintz curtains that a lamp is on deep in the living room. Rita's home, night. Rita comes into the house, closing the door behind her. She turns. The house is quiet, but the vague indication of light makes her turn from the small entrance foyer and take a few steps into the living room. Rita's POV. The living room is dark, except for one small reading lamp at the far end. Its thin light throws a vague illumination over the modest room, which is half dining and half living room. The furniture is Victorian, uncomfortable-looking chairs on spindly legs, and an uncomfortable couch. A small mahogany dining table is surrounded by small mahogany dining chairs. Sprawled in one of the soft chairs is Joanna, suddenly heavily drunk. Her shoes are off and lie on their sides in front of her. One of her stockings makes a wispy bundle on the shadowy floor. Her blouse is unbuttoned and hangs loosely outside of her slacks. On the floor lies a bottle of gin on its side, half of it spilled onto the rug in an ugly blotch. There is also an ice cube container from the refrigerator on the floor. And beside Joanna's chair is a highball glass containing one ice cube. She regards Rita's entrance through swollen, heavy-lidded eyes. Her face is thick with drunken pain. The light of the lamp falls fitfully on her features, shadowing and distorting them. Reaction shot of Rita. Expressionless. Rita watches her friend. Then she sidles slowly across the room toward Joanna, who is now looking down at the floor. Rita sinks onto the couch, which forms an L to the chair Joanna sits in. For a moment, she just sits there. Rita bends down, picks up the gin bottle and pours some into the highball glass on the end table. Then she takes the glass and begins to sip it. Her face remains expressionless throughout all this. Now she kicks off her shoes, leans back, and stretches her feet out in front of her. Her eyes close. She sips the drink. Long shot, looking down the length of the living room to the two starlets sprawled on their seats. The small disarray of a small drunken binge on the carpet in front of them. Not a word is said for a long moment. Then Rita stands, holding her drink, sipping it as she walks down the living room toward the telephone sitting on the coffee table directly in front of the camera. She sits down in the chair beside the phone, lifts the receiver, sets it down on the coffee table, dials, sipping her gin throughout. She picks up the receiver, holds it to her ear, looks vaguely, even with boredom, around the room. Rita, on phone. Room 417, please. Mr. Dutch Seymour. She waits, making short sighs of frustration and tenseness, and then suddenly downs the rest of her drink in one gulp. The taste is forbidding, and she clenches her eyes against it. Then, with her eyes still closed, "Well, hello, Dutch. This is Rita. I hope I didn't wake you up. I know how you stay up late reading all the time." "No, I just got in." "Well, I tell you, Dutch." She looks up at the ceiling, bored, tired. "I feel like getting married. Do you still want to marry me, Dutch?" "Yeah, sure. Anytime. I promise you I'll make you a very good wife." Dutch